Lewis Hamilton won his third race of the season to retake the championship lead from Sebastian Vettel Credit. REUTERS Grand Prix racing returned to France for the first time in a decade, a country that deserves to have a place on every Formula One calendar. The Circuit Paul Ricard and the general organization was not without its critics, however. Drivers complained about the chicane halfway down the Mistral straight, and the perceived wisdom was that this remodeled test track would not bring about the racing that F1 needed after two uneventful Grand Prix. That is not mentioning the mammoth queues in and out of the circuit on Saturday and Sunday. Rain, it seemed, gave the best chance anything more than a processional race. This turned out to only be partly true. There was far more on-track action than many expected in dull races in Monaco and Canada. It was no thriller, and a lot of the overtaking came from Valtteri Bottas and Sebastian Vettel scything their way through the field, but the Paul Ricard cynics, including me, were proven wrong. On/off, Hamilton finds his best form to retake championship lead, but his advantage is not what it seems. Lewis Hamilton, first class in France. Credit, REUTERS. There was little significant racing at the very front of the field, however. Once Vettel and Bottas collided and were forced to stop on the first lap, the only pressure on pole sitter Lewis Hamilton's lead came from Max Verstappen's Red Bull. The race here was more of a phony war than a proper one, and Hamilton had the pace when and if he needed it. Despite the Dutchman reducing the Britain's advantage to around 4 seconds towards the end of the race, the result was never in doubt. Hamilton, with a new specification Mercedes engine in the back of his W09, was fastest in every session that mattered, taking pole by 0.118 seconds ahead of his teammate. Hamilton at his best is unbeatable. But there has always been the tendency for off weekends. He is not alone in this, but for someone of his ability they are very noticeable. Still, the frequency of on and off has been greater in 2018. The world champion was on in Melbourne but off in Bahrain, off in China and Azerbaijan but on in Spain. A surprisingly poor weekend in Montreal, a track he adores, was then followed by a dominant weekend here in France, with Vettel only able to put in a recovery drive to take fifth and 10 points. Hamilton's title lead reverted to the 14 he had after Monaco. It is a significant lead, but it is not entirely as it seems, given the up-and-down nature of the championship and the form of the two four-time world champions and their machinery. Ferrari have had the quickest package 4 times and Mercedes 3 over 8 races. The average performance gap is minuscule. Mercedes are as vulnerable as they have been in the turbo-hybrid era. We do not know who will have the advantage every time we turn up to a track. The championship lead has changed hands plenty of times already, and with leads around the size Hamilton currently has, it would be a surprise if this did not continue until the end of the season. Another error costs Vettel dearly, but was his penalty enough? Sebastian Vettel collides with Valtteri Bottas on the opening lap of the French Grand Prix. Credit, AP. Vettel, like Hamilton, has been hot and cold. The difference between the Briton and the German has been the errors that Vettel has made. Mistake after a safety car restart in Azerbaijan cost him a chance of victory and helped Hamilton to a lucky win. In France he ran into Bottas's Mercedes going into the first corner, damaging his own front wing and puncturing the Finn's right rear tire. Both were forced to pit at the end of lap 1 and came out at the very back. Vettel replaced his front wing and drove well to recover lost ground, but damage to Bottas's floor made it a more difficult job for him to make his way to the front, and he finished only 7th. Vettel was given a 5-second time penalty for the incident, but to many, Hamilton, team boss Toto Wolff, Max Verstappen and Niki Lauda, this was not a proportionate penalty. He wrecked his own race, but his error was far more costly to Bottas. Geez, he took him right out. "Oh man, that's crazy," is what Hamilton said to second-placed Verstappen when he saw the collision replayed in the post-race cool-down room. The mistake itself was relatively minor and not that unusual for an opening lap, but the consequences were amplified as it happened at the very start of the race. The puncture cost Bottas a lot more time than a simple nudge and spin would have, as he limped back to the pits. Vettel's front wing damage was not severe enough to hinder his pace so much. Should the punishment be proportionate to the size of the error or the magnitude of its consequences? It is worth noting that Verstappen was given a 10-second time penalty for a similar incident in the Chinese Grand Prix when he collided with Vettel. The 20-year-old also hit back with a sarcastic barb to the media in a spicy statement in the evening press conference, referencing the questions he faced about his own errors earlier in the season. "I think the next time you see Seb you should ask him to change his style because, honestly, it's not acceptable. That's what they said to me in the beginning of the season, so I think they should do the same. And then Seb shouldn't do anything and just drive again and learn from this. That's my advice to everyone, the media, in this room." In reality though, Vettel's punishment of losing 15 points to his title rival has hit him where it hurts most. Who was the real driver of the day? F1 runs an online poll where viewers can vote for their driver of the day. These exercises are notoriously tricky things and often bring about results that are bizarre and plain wrong or reward teams, players with the most fervent online support. Today's winner was not the faultless Hamilton. It was Sebastian Vettel, wrong on so many levels but mostly because it was his own error that forced him into recovery mode and ruined Bottas's Sunday. But who was the real driver of the day? Of course, it would be deserved if Hamilton won. But I always feel giving the driver of the day to the race winner in the best car is a bit of a cop-out, faultless though the winning drive was. That's why I'm making the case for Kevin Magnussen, who, like a couple of other drivers on the grid, is taking the chances when he gets them. The Dane picked up another 8 points here despite starting a few places lower than he should have after being impeded in final qualifying. He still managed to out-qualify his pointless teammate Romain Grosjean for the 6th race in a row. Sainz's bad luck helped him, but he was there to take advantage when others were not. It was his third top 6 finish of the season and he now stands 10th in the Drivers' Championship with 27 points. His target for the final standings will be to finish the best of the rest behind the top 6 drivers. If Haas can get their car to work on more tracks than not in the remaining 13 races, they were awful in Monaco and poor in Montreal, then he has a very good chance of overhauling Sainz, Alonso and Hülkenberg ahead of him.